Bill Cosby is an ex-high school dropout who has twice won Emmy Awards for his television role as a spy who is a Rhodes Scholar and who speaks 7 languages. Of his high school years at Germantown High in Philadelphia, William Henry Cosby Jr. has said, "I never studied or cared about school. The biggest thing was being able to throw a football." So he dropped out and joined the Navy. It was during his years in the service that he realized the value of an education, so he applied for a high school program and earned his diploma. Then after 4 years' duty, he enrolled at Temple University, where he became a physical education major and a football star. With a natural gift for storytelling and humor, Bill Cosby was lured to drop out of school again, this time in his junior year, for what became a lucrative career as a comedian in show business. The next few years, Bill Cosby gained a fame through nightclub and television appearances as well as for his record albums. When the TV series I Spy was in the planning stages, producer Sheldon Leonard cast Bill Cosby as Alex Scott, sidekick of the already established actor Robert Culp. Cosby started out unsure of his acting abilities and wound up winning TV's equivalent of the Oscar, the Emmy, 2 years in a row as the best actor in a continuing series. He's married and is the father of 2 small daughters. Bill, it's generally thought that your being cast in the role in I Spy, as I think you've put it this way yourself, as a person, not a problem, was a big step forward. And yet, Harry Belafonte, writing the New York Times, doesn't feel it's a big enough step. He says, and I quote him directly, "The Negro artist on TV is not free to reflect the world from which he comes, with its particular richness, cultural values, and problems. For the shuffling, simple-minded Amos and Andy type of Negro, TV has substituted a new, one-dimensional Negro without reality on shows like Mission Impossible, I Spy, and Ironsides." Do you feel that in any way this step is not big enough that has been taken?
Well, certainly what Harry says is quite true. However, Harry left out certain things. The involvement in the reality of facing or trying to solve this particular problem. And that is the problem with racism and the bigotry that exists. It's labeled and it's laid upon the black people. It's laid on top of the Mexican people. I think the Orientals probably have the least problem because they haven't said anything about it. Jewish people have a problem also. And on down the line, depending upon whatever group happens to be the majority, they'll attack the minority. Now, of course, Amos and Andy had a great amount of acceptance. I thought they were funny, and I still think they're funny. But like a racial joke today, I don't want to tell it to white people. And I don't want white people telling jokes about black people to me, because today they're not funny, you see.
It's the times that make the difference.
It happens to be with the times. So from the Amos and Andys, with their funny mess-up of the English language and just taking words and, you know, just fooling around with them, and of course the way they talked and all of the stereotypes laid in, we went from that to, pardon me, the other end of the spectrum, which was to have a man who was so brilliant you couldn't question his being a spy. He knew all the languages. There had to be a reason for his being there.
He wasn't a tonto, as you've said.
Right. You had to accept this man, you see. And this was supposed to erase all the Amos and Andys that had happened. In order to come to the middle of the road, you see, we have to have the two extremes, which has happened here. Harry's come out and said, yeah, but that isn't it, man. What we want to see is come on in and, you know,
Sure.
and show it like it is. Well, you're going to run into a fantastic amount of problems here, as if we
With
didn't
whom?
run into problems before. Well, Problems like a network who will blame it on the sponsors who will blame it on the people.
Pass it on down.
You see, without ever letting the people judge for themselves whether they like it or not, or without even letting a series just stay on because it's something that will give a message to the people, to the American people. It's yanked off immediately, you see. So I think that even with I Spy, we could have done a fantastic amount of stories which had to do with America and bigotry and how to fight it and how to try and rid the country of racism.
You didn't think this was important to do that, though?
No, it wasn't that I didn't think it was important. It was just that the networks, or the network itself, felt that it is important, and as a matter of fact, it's too important. It's so important that they might just lose whatever particular parts of the country they're trying to gain. You know, many people make a step, or they take a step in a certain direction. Sheldon Leonard's step was hiring a Negro. But then, at times, I would have to go to the casting director and say, listen, there are 25 people in this nightclub scene, and they're all white. Can't we see a couple of, you know, black people in the nightclub? And the guy would look at me and say, well, but how many black people did you see in Hong Kong? And I said, well, what am I doing here? You see. And he, you know, he would say, okay, so we made a little pact for every 5 white people in a nightclub, I would get 1 black person.
Kind of a ratio.
You see, some kind of a ratio.
Yeah.
And so it started with having black people in our party scene, so forth and so on. And of course, you have to, like I said before, go to the other end of the spectrum.
So you can see it coming back to the middle.
I can see it slowly coming back to the middle. But before that, there are an awful lot of things that have to be done. You see, I'm very pessimistic about the scene ever really being shown, the racial thing being shown the way it really is. I think the only way it can happen is through the documentaries, even in the form of a dramatization, you see.
But this shows it always as a problem, doesn't it?
Yes, it always shows it as a problem because that's the only way the writer feels he can get the point across, which is something that I agree with, but there are certain ways to attack a problem. When a scientist goes in to try and find a vaccine to cure or to stop polio, he doesn't go at it saying this is a terrible, terrible disease, and he doesn't go in depressed about it. He goes in with an open mind, and he goes in to attack this thing. And I think that if we can do this, if we can learn to accept the fact that bigotry and racism exist in this country, let us join and let us listen to certain values and ideas, and let us try to, for once in our lives, try and understand what the black man's problem is. Not even understand, I disagree with myself. I think it is to accept the fact that it exists, because I think that most of your bigots understand the problem. They just don't want to accept it.
Now you play, in I Spy, you play a man, not a black man. Have you ever been circumscribed within the scripts, and what can and cannot be done in that context?
Well, sure. In the beginning, little simple things like a woman saying goodbye, who's a close friend of Bob's. She would kiss me on the cheek. Well, that scene would be cut out. Yeah. My kissing a white woman on the cheek.
Again, going down the scale, talking to the audience, saying the audience won't accept it.
Yes, the audience won't accept it. They take it upon themselves. My taking a white woman by the arm and perhaps helping her up this, any sort of contact, any contact on Bob's part would be cut out. Any reference to attacking a bigot or something would be cut out. any sort of reference to that had racial overtones of any sort of militancy, not violence, but just militancy, cut out. That kind of thing. This all had to do with sponsors and people who smoked. And even I smoked cigars. I wasn't allowed to smoke cigars.
Why not cigars?
Because we had a cigarette sponsor.
Oh, I see.
And so
another kind of prejudice.
Yes, it's a, they all run the whole gamut. I wasn't allowed to meet a girl and keep her. You see, I wasn't allowed to meet a girl and just snatch her and take her right to bed, because the producers felt that this would be a bad image for a black man.
Yes.
To just meet a woman and say, "Hey, how you doing?" and she and I would go up to the old sack together. This was...
It's right for a white man, though.
This was not... It's all right for a white man. He can run around there and just jump on anything, But didn't want it to happen. So therefore, I found my character really not having any girlfriends at all, And since I'm living in the same room with this guy, we got an awful lot of letters from other fellas who kind of dug us.
Yes,
and asked us out to a lot of parties. So...
How did you feel about taking this role? You were a comedian, stand-up comedian at that point. You hadn't done acting, had you?
No.
How'd you feel about it?
I was frightened. I was frightened, not necessarily for my people. I was frightened for Bill Cosby, And I went on, and I was really shook. Acting's a different thing. If I do my routines, I know what I'm doing, and I know how to control it. If I talk for 4 hours, I know where I'm going. And of course, comedy is just a matter of errors and to exaggerate or to play on the familiar. And gee whiz, it was just a whole new thing for me, and quite silly. Because here I am as an individual, I can talk to 5,000, 10,000, 14,000 people live, not be afraid. I can be talking to you and the guy say you're on, and I'll go on and pop, blah, 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 blah. But here I was in the studio, just cameraman, and I had to say a few lines. And
that's a harder
sweat
audience.
Was running for days, and when I was so happy to get those lines out, it was just a bad sore inside of my body. Just get them out, and that's all I cared about. Get them out, say them.
In one article about you, you're quoted as saying that you didn't try too hard in the beginning, so you'd have an excuse in case you failed.
Yes. Well, I think that's true of, a lot of people do.
Yes,
that.
it is.
You say, come on, man, give it a shot. And you say, oh, no, I know I can do it. I just rather not. I don't,
Much of your comedy is, as you pointed out, exaggeration, but exaggeration of your own childhood, or what I assume is your own childhood. Was this a point of view you took at the time you were a child? Like any child, you obviously had your problems, perhaps more than some. Was it a point of view you had to take, or you accommodated yourself to, of looking at life that way? Was this the beginning of your comedy?
For some reason, I took on a philosophy that if a certain thing happened to me, and it brought about a strong emotional response, I would sort of photograph that particular situation, remember it, and the next time try to control my reaction in such a way by remembering what had happened before, you see. I do not have total recall. However, I think it's quite easy, in retrospect, to think about something that has happened. It will key off a certain thing. We could have 6 or 7 people sitting around, and I would start it off. When I was 7 years old, we had these little lollipops, and I'd talk about something. Well, while you're listening, you're 7, you start to identify with, and that particular lollipop story may bring something on that you remember, and so forth and so as we go along the line. Now, when you talk about this just about every day, and each and every day you're always searching for something new, it's bound to pop up. It's bound to happen. I have 6 albums out, and I think on each album you may get something like 45 minutes. And in that 45 minutes I put a lot of, the childhood in there. But if you remember, the childhood starts from, let us say, if you can remember as far back as 4, and you go up to like 13. That's 10 years.
Yes.
It's not all on The records.
There's a lot happened in those years.
Oh, yes.
When you were
Yes,
quite
indeed.
young, what, about 11, you had to become the head of the household when your father left.
I was the head of the household long before then.
Were you?
Well, my father
You had
left.
2 brothers.
Yeah, my father left in and out. He was very cool about everything. He would come back whenever the bills were all paid. Then he'd make some and then he'd leave again. So my mother brought us up, really. And the beautiful thing about my mother is that she never became a man. You see, she was always a woman, and whenever we goofed, she always cried. And no spankings, no beatings, you know, just her tears alone, you know, would like shake us up. And, well...
You were the eldest of the 3 brothers, so that it
Yes.
fell upon you to, and if there was to be a father, in a sense, I suppose you became that.
And I think my mother suffered more than anybody else from that. Because
Why?
I used to get up Sunday mornings and cook, see. And she worked like 6 days a week for $8 a day in car fare. And I used to make these waffles. But I got tired of looking at the same old waffles. So I would put food coloring in the batter. And she really didn't dig them, man. You know, I got to bring her a purple waffle. You know, she went crazy, man. She'd throw the waffle. Get these waffles out of here, you know. I dug them. I love purple waffles. Green, orange, you know, red waffles. I loved them, man. For some reason, and I couldn't understand why my mom never dug them.
You went to work as a shoeshine boy at one point, didn't you?
Yeah, oh, sure.
Kind of a
man.
stereotype, isn't it?
Well, we lived in a ghetto. What else was there? You know, there was no white man or black man to walk up and say, listen, I got a little factory. I want you to come on around here and I'll teach you how to run this lathe. Nobody did that. We all went down to the marketplace and we would take the empty orange crates and we'd hammer out the nails and everything and straighten the nails out on the cement. And each and every kid, maybe 20 kids in the block, all doing the same thing. I don't know if it ever happened with you, but each and every kid did the same thing. Every Christmas, kids had the same toys, just about. If the thing was, somebody said, roller skates are cool, boom, that Christmas,
Everybody
20 kids
roller
with
skates.
roller skates. And we never... I want to tell you a story, and I think this will give you an idea of what the kids are like, or what the guys I grew up with were like. One day we were down on a city dump, and we used to go down to the city dump because we lived in the projects. We used to go down to the city dump and hunt for rats, because there were no rats in the housing project at that time. It was a brand new housing project, and the rats hadn't yet come from the outlying districts to attack our place. And besides, our place is all made out of brick and steel and everything, so it's quite difficult to get the rats to come in there and live, you know, at that time. So we used to take, one kid had a BB gun, and we'd get rocks and cans, and we'd go around making noises, you know, like the Indians that and the Africans that beat the bush to bring out the lion, and boom, up would jump a rat. And one kid, he'd take a shot at him with his BB gun, and we'd throw rocks, and we'd hit the rat, you know, and we'd beat him up, and we'd dance all around him and everything. And then we get a can, and we realized that a rat was dirty and everything. We didn't know anything about bubonic plague or anything, but we knew he was dirty, and we'd carry him home in a box and show, hey, look at what we got. Well, one day somebody kicked over this rock, and it was about the size of this ashtray here, and it looked like glass, but it had a little cloudiness in it, you see. And it was shaped all jagged and everything. It wasn't broken or anything, but it looked like something that had fallen out of the sky, maybe, or something that you would find in Colorado, or one of those weird places where we'd never been before. And somebody said, it was about 7 of us, said, man, said, this is a diamond. And we said, how much do you think it's worth? How much can we get for it? And the guy said, well, I don't know, man. This must be about $10 million, man. So somebody said, that ain't no diamond. So we threw him out. Said, you go home, because this is a diamond.
Philistine.
Yeah. Now we all sit down, we forget about the rat. And we all sit down and we just look at this thing. And as we look at it, we start talking about money and everything. And here are the values, right here. If this is a real diamond, what will you do with your money? Because we're going to split it up evenly.
Yeah.
Every kid said, first, I'm going to buy my mother a house. See?
Every kid said this.
Yes. First, I'm going to buy my mother a house. Give my mother a big house. And she's not going to work no more for the rest of her life. She just live in that house and cook for us. Secondly, I'm going to take what's left from the house and I'm going to buy that bicycle. Now, each kid had a different thing he wanted to buy, if it was a bicycle or if it was a real gun to shoot the rats with. One, you know, it had to do with a bicycle, gun, skates, so forth and so on. You know, whatever they saw on television that was really out of reach, whether it was $5 or whether it cost $2. The last person mentioned, after all the money was spent, and maybe out of all the $1 million that the kid had, the last person mentioned was the father.
The father.
He said, and then with the rest of the money, I get my father a car so he can go to work.
Yeah.
Now the mother has a home, and she's not going to work anymore. The kid's got his bicycle and his BB gun, and his brother's got the suits or whatever. He's starting to take care of the pain-pleasure principle. I'm going to buy my brother some shoes so he doesn't have to wear mine, and so forth and so on. And then the last person was the father, who had to have a car so he could keep his responsibility going.
Yes.
You see.
Conscious of the need to keep that responsibility going.
Very much so. Very much so. So, you know, along with that, we all made our little shoe shine boxes, and we'd all go downtown. We go downtown and we go down and shine shoes. Some kids felt they could make more money selling shopping bags. So they'd make this contact with a fella who would give them 25 shopping bags. They'd sell it for a nickel, and the fella would give them a penny a bag.
Yeah.
I always stopped after I had made $2, regardless of what time of day.
Why two?
$2 was a lot of money,
Yeah.
a lot of money, and I'd take it home and I'd give my mother something like $1.75 and keep the big quarter for myself. And she always took it and used it. I can remember one Christmas when we had no Christmas tree, which was a fantastic kind of blow. I remember one Christmas when we had a tree but no money, and my mother gave me a $5 bill.
Yeah.
And I cried. I cried because it was Christmas time, and I felt that just giving me a $5 bill meant nothing. You know, where was my present?
Present.
And that's what I said to her with tears in my eyes and just babbling like a baby. Like, you could have given me anything. Just it could have been an old Hershey bar, but I just wanted it wrapped up in something. I wanted a gift, you know, not just an old bill. Selfish, of course, but, you know, this is a child crying because he didn't get a present.
You dropped out of school and joined the Navy, but in the Navy you decided to get your high school diploma. What happened in the Navy that the education became important?
Well, first of all, regardless of my mistakes and my bad values growing up, of course my mother couldn't do everything, and my complete disregard for an education, formal education, thinking that I could make it as a professional football player or a professional basketball player, and that was it. I just kind of, I didn't like having to answer to people whom I felt were just dumb. That's the only way I can express it. Dumb. Second class, third class, first class corpsman saying, clean this up. Why? Because I said so, but so forth and so on. This is already done. And, you know, because of his seniority, I had to answer to him. And I felt that I didn't want to stay in the Navy and listen to people like this. I wanted to get out and get myself an education, and I realized that, you know, without a formal education, I could find myself working at some cafeteria, busting down tables, that sort of thing. So I made an effort. thank goodness I'm an intelligent human being, and I graduated from high school with the GED course.
Right.
And thank goodness I was accepted at Temple University on an athletic scholarship for track and field. You have no idea how groovy I felt then, and it was an open relief, because I could see, like, for the rest of my life, me working on tables. And then I entered Temple University, a frightened 23-year-old freshman. I played 4 sports and made the dean's list. And to show you how ignorant I was, you know, I didn't even know what the dean's list was. And I said, well, you made the dean's list. I said, what did I do? Wrong, you know. And he said, no, you know, like really groovy. And A in, of all things, English, you know.
Success has come fairly rapidly since then for you. You've, in a sense, got it made now in terms of what you make, money, records.
No, money, I think, is really gone, because Sam tears you up.
Yeah,
he tears me up. It's 90 cents out of a dollar.
They're established anyway. What about the future? Do you want to go on with the kind of life you're leading now, which must be pretty rigorous in terms of its demands? Do you want to be in showbiz?
I used to be quite gregarious, really. Walk down the street and say hello, you know, to quite a few people, if I knew the surroundings, you know. But now, I kind of detest doing that sort of thing, because now I know that if I stop to say hello to one, then it means 5.
Yeah.
And they want something from me, you see. That's the thing that hurts. Sign this paper.
So privacy becomes very important to you now.
Yes, because it isn't that they want to say, hey, how you doing? You know, it's
do
like,
something.
Do something for me. Sign this paper. So there's no rest. That's work, you know. And American people are they're rather funny. They're rather funny people. You work hard. You make them laugh. They forget their troubles. They enjoy your acting. But then if you don't sign a piece of paper for them, they dislike you. They're not going to watch you anymore, you see. So it's as if when they do like you, you really owe them something because they like you.
Because they like you.
But that's not real friendship.
Bill, I'm sorry. You're
Is that
accustomed
it?
to working in an hour-long format. Our time is up.
The
one thing I'm certain of, whether they make demands upon you or not, they're going to continue to like you and hope that you will continue to entertain us as you've done for the past few years. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Interview with your host, Charles Supin.
Hello, and the topic is creativity, and we're going to try and define it or describe it or talk about it, but in the person and with the person of Bill Cosby. Welcome.
Thank you.
I think it would be helpful if we let you in on a big secret, which we haven't been keeping that much of a secret, but all these rascals, at least most of these rascals, are members of the Rainbow Company, which is the city-sponsored children's theater in Las Vegas. And you should give yourself a round of applause, because it's an award-winning company. And therefore, you all know everything there is to know about creativity, right? Maybe we start a little bit, Bill, about how long have you been in the business?
Nightclub, entertainment, 20 years.
20.
Not a long time.
No.
You don't think of it like that. It's 20 years because when you say when I started, then it comes to 20 years. But each day, from the day I started, the day I made a commitment, and that's very, very important. The day you make a commitment that this is what you want to do seriously, that's the day that you mark that you enter the business. When you no longer want to do it, and the next morning you wake up and it really isn't there, and from then on in it still isn't there, that's the day you're out of it.
Describe that day for you, that you made the commitment.
I was in my junior year, college. I had just finished football season, and I was finishing up my my finals. And after my last final, I knew that I would not be back because I had struggled the second part of my junior year academically only because I hadn't studied. And I felt that I wasn't doing a service to myself and the children I would have to teach later on, and I always figured that I could come back to college anyway. So I decided to, and made a commitment to go after becoming a stand-up comedian.
Do you know what that means to make a commitment to show business? Now, you're in the Rainbow Company, right?
Yeah.
Your name?
David Adler.
And how many plays have you been in?
None. In fact, I was in a play at UNLV once, but it wasn't a Rainbow Company production.
What play was it?
Aladdin.
Do you understand what Bill is talking about making a commitment to the theater or something?
I think so, because when you make a commitment, you have to, I think you have to stick to it, and you can't change your mind halfway through once you've made that commitment to yourself.
So you found once you made that commitment that you had to stick with it, or were there other things that kept on getting in the way?
Essentially, the commitment Mr. Adler is speaking of is a way of saying to oneself, this is what I'm going to try to do. If I fail, I will find out I cannot do it. There are many people who enter this particular business, this show business, who just want to become a star. And they see things on TV and they say, well, I can do that. They don't necessarily say I'm better, but they say I can do that. So they go straight to Hollywood. They don't bother to load themselves so that they have all of the tools. Because regardless of whether so-and-so got the job as they were walking down the street, it's still better to be prepared technically. Therefore, the commitment has to do with preparing oneself and being ready. Going to classes, studying the art, studying your craft, which requires an awful lot of thinking. This entertainment business is one that requires you be familiar with the likes of playing chess. 3 moves ahead. One move certainly is in case of success, the other is in case of failure, and the other is in case you have to wait and come back.
You didn't go right to Hollywood. Where did you go to try out?
First of all, your own hometown is the worst place on the face of this earth.
You'll all have to move, gang. I'm sorry to tell you that.
I'm very, very serious. I'm very, very serious. Las Vegas, Nevada, I don't think they've ever found anybody. And they call it the entertainment capital of the world. But they've never really found anyone. They may have helped develop this many in all of the years that they've been open. Las Vegas, Nevada is a city. The entertainment part, the hotel part, is a place that requires the public tell them who they want to see. Therefore, you're going to have to leave. And is as strange as it may seem, it's paradoxical. If I live in New York City, that would probably be the only city I wouldn't have to leave in order to be found, because it's like 10 million people there and nobody knows who you are anyway. But other cities, you have to leave that city and go someplace else. Oddly enough, if you're in Chicago, you can't be discovered in Chicago. You have to leave and go to maybe Omaha, who would probably write direct from Chicago and then put your name there. So people would look at that as a stamp of someone of quality. The person from Omaha would go to Chicago, and the people in Chicago would welcome that person and say, it's lovely to have you here as an actor, as an actress, as a performer, so forth and so on. I was born in Philadelphia. I couldn't get a job in Philadelphia as a stand-up comedian. Whether I was bad or whatever, that's an opinion. But I just couldn't get a job. I had to go to New York City. I got a job in Greenwich Village. I will not tell you how much money I made per week, because, I mean, that shifts with the times. 20 years ago, money, whatever, $10 is not the $10 you have today. I was not starving, but I wasn't comfortable. So, the city that you live in, please don't expect it to support you. Expect it to become very, very excited when you become a star and act like they are the reason why you became very famous.
Bill, when you started as a stand-up comedian, did you tell jokes or did you tell stories or?
I never told jokes. I never had a feeling to tell jokes. I love jokes. I love to listen to them. And I will tell good, dirty jokes to my friends in private. But I've never, I enjoy a story more. And I've always enjoyed it. It's something that my grandfather did, my father's father did very well, and my father did very well. As a matter of fact, the whole Cosby side of the family, the thing that I enjoyed most was when all of those, as a child, when all of the old people got together at the big dinners, and they're called stories, but they were mostly lies, and everybody laughed. Everybody laughed, and that was a good time.
Now, Carol, did you say you saw his act here, or did you say you saw his act? You did. And your name?
Gabby Smith.
And you saw his act at the stand-up comedian act, or the sit-down comedian act at the Hilton. Tell me about it. What did you like or not like? Or?
I liked the way that it was, like I said, like you said, it was more of a story than an actual joke, and it wasn't anything that I couldn't hear, and that maybe my little brother or little sister couldn't hear. Everybody, the whole family could enjoy his shows.
But what's so funny about telling about your family?
Maybe it's just the way he says it. I don't know, but I just enjoy it.
Have you seen the show too? What do you like about it?
I like the way that one of the stories that I heard described my brother and I perfectly, and how he takes like a story that could be the truth and stretches it, and so it's really funny to listen to.
Do these stories come from your own home?
Oh, yes.
How many children do you have, Bill?
5. But when you say something that happened at home and you stretch it, you really have to, because if I give you straight up dialogue about what happened, then you do like this. But if I want laughter, then sometimes I have to color it. Example, my 5-year-old does what all of my children did, but I just picked up on it recently, which I think is very, very funny. She knows that she's going to get no for an answer on a particular question she's going to ask. But she's going to ask it anyway, you see. So she will ask the question and then give the no before you can give it. You see? So it's very, very funny. I mean, she'll say, I said to her some time ago, she said, can I have a pretzel? I said, no, wait until after dinner. Well, here she comes again. Dinner's a half hour away. Well, Dad, can I have a pretzel? No. You know, she'll answer herself and just walk off, you know, knowing what, and it's just funny to me. But in listening to kids when they're around their parents, many of them do that. Mom, can I have soda? No, you know, and then they just walk off. Well, grown-ups do the same thing also. And it becomes pretty funny to listen to someone ask a question, and before you can say no, they already know the answer is no. And so the question is, why did you ask? And then on top of that, why answer before anybody, you know? So my daughter did that, and she said no, and I said yes, just to see what she would say. And she almost broke her neck turning back around again, you know?
Okay, you find a situation in your home life that appeals to you, and all of a sudden you see it being funny, potentially funny to other people. At what point then do you take that onto the stage and relate that to an audience of comparative strangers?
First of all, comparative's okay, but no one's really a stranger the way I work, unless they don't speak American. Even then, I have not had that much of a problem becoming at least simpatico if we don't speak the same language. The basis of everything that I do is that we are human beings first. Therefore, we have behavioral patterns that are the same. Things do correlate. Children start out learning with their own priorities, which are altered and changed by their environment. We have a certain percentage of people who won't, when 97% will. Usually they go from one extreme to the other, jail or to the wealthiest people on earth, nut or genius, you see. But I'd say that if you wanted to hit the mainstream, you'd be surprised at the percentages and the times that you'll take a shot at becoming quote-unquote normal, which nobody likes, but nobody wants to not be if it's down. The stories then are human being related stories. Things will alter, but basically an angry parent, an angry mother talks the same way. The male father talks the same way. Their likes, their dislikes, those things usually run in the same pattern. Words may be different. Some parents swear more than others. Some parents don't hit at all. But still, we're dealing with the number one median, and that is the child.
Do you ever get people in the audience who might be offended by any kind of reference you make to someone hitting a child or?
Oh yes, sure. But then again, the first thing I have to find out is if they understand what I'm talking about. To hit a child, as I said to the audience before, there's a difference between battering, abusing, and giving what we used to call, when I was a kid, or getting a beating. Now, this beating was used to change your priorities, not to get the jollies off of the parents, you know. This beating was to change your priorities. I was told to clean up the bathroom on Saturday. Well, it just so happened that the day slipped by. I mean, it just went so fast. And my mother came home and the bathroom wasn't finished, so my punishment had to come. These things do not scar anybody forever and ever. And as I said before, on stage, some parents don't strike their child at all. They change the priorities other ways. I've seen some children whom I feel needed some sort of different handling because they seem to be more in charge than the parent. But then again, because a person will not strike their child does not mean that they're not bringing up a child who will be a person that society will be happy to have.
Now, is this what you meant when you said he was relating to things like your brother and you?
Yeah.
Now, what were the incidents?
Well, I don't remember exactly, but like, remember one of the parts in the story about they are arguing in the car, and my brother and I do that all the time.
And they're a little confined and everybody packed in that car. And that relates to situations in your own life.
Sure, you, in telling the story, I can just about pull out what the children fight about because we have 5 of them.
Well, when we come back, we're going to ask you about that, but also to find out how you got around to discovering what Fat Albert was all about. We'll be right back with Bill Cosby. We're talking about the nature of creativity and show business, and with us is Bill Cosby. Someone here, Bill, has some questions, and you had some questions you want to ask. So,
I was just wondering, did you really do all the voices on the Bill Cosby, on the Fat Albert show?
No.
No. Okay.
how did that come about?
At the time, I was writing routines about myself as as an adolescent, and recalling all of the fellows that I grew up with. We had a fellow, Fat Albert, and I began to work things around him, and I found that he would be an excellent person to work with because I could make a hero out of somebody that most people never really thought of. Usually when you talk about a fat person, you think in the Falstaff way. So I decided to take this big person and make him a very, very intelligent person, and one who could be the leader because he just wasn't fat. He was strong physically and mentally, since he was in charge, and give an image to quote unquote a gang of kids who really don't have a direction as of yet. So Fat Albert represents the direction.
How many of you have seen Fat Albert? What's
That
good?
show's been on the air, I guess, pretty close to 10 years, and it has been up against baseball and all kinds of shows, and I think the other two networks have just about given up on trying to whip Fat Albert. It is a phenomena because it's a show that doesn't have all of the violence that they say is necessary to keep children's attention. It does not have all of the loud noise. It also preaches and hopefully teaches. That's why it is a phenomenon.
Now, your name?
It's Brad Heberly.
And you watch Fat Albert. Why?
I think it's interesting about, you know, how the friends could get into all these different, I guess, things that they do and how they get out of it, and it's interesting to watch.
Is it funny?
Yeah, at certain points how they get stuck in certain situations, and
Do you look at it because it's funny, or do you look at it for some other reason?
I guess I like it. It's funny. It's a good comedy for a cartoon, and it's different from all all the other ones that are in space, and it's just about just regular people.
Closer to home.
Yeah.
But it also is a little more, not grown up, but a little more mature. The other cartoon shows are full of oh wow, oh golly, and wow-ee, and then and here he comes, oh well, who's there now? You know, some of these shows really embarrass you. I mean, if you're watching them and you know that some intelligent people are coming, you wouldn't keep that on your TV set.
Do you feel that way?
Well, I don't want anybody coming over if I'm watching some
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be caught watching that.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't mind being caught watching Fat Albert?
No, I like it. I think it's, yeah. Some of my friends watch it too.
Do you watch it? Do you watch it?
Yeah.
Would you stand? Why do you like it? Oh, your name?
Dolores Golden.
Hi.
Hi.
And why do you like it?
I guess because it presents a moral and a theme to children.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny.
Yeah. And very close to home, and instead of the space kind of thing. Do you watch it
We
too?
do have space, though. We have the Brown Hornet.
Yeah,
Now,
right.
well, Tinker.
You say you don't do all the voices.
No, I do Mushmouth, Wabbit, Wabbit, Habby, Yubbit, Dubby, which is a voice that I took from a guy named Johnny Coles, who plays trumpet, or cornet rather. And I do, of course, and then I do myself as a kid, which gives me a headache because I have to go all the way up into the nose to do it and get that nasal sound. And then I do the Brown Hornet, who's our new character, who represents wonderful things, and he enunciates clearly.
Doing Fat Albert, though, is a strain on the vocal cords, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, and Mudfoot. There's an old man named Mudfoot, and the two, it's sort of like the problem with doing the two is like trying to do Walter Brennan and then John Wayne without taking a break. They almost do like that.
How do you do it physically? Do you go in and tape a series of them, or what?
Well, it's animated, of course, so I'll get, they'll send me about 7 scripts to my home. And I set up the little Bill Cosby recording studio in my office and shut the door. First, I have to go around and tell 5 people that I'm going to be recording. Please, can they hold it down and not fight for at least an hour and a half.
And one of them says, I want to come in. No.
Right. It's a funny story about my son, Ennis. Ennis is now 13. And I think Ennis was 8 years old. How old are you? 10. Okay. Ennis was 8. How old are you? Okay. Can you stand up? I just want the audience to see what, come here, please. Now, if you add 1 year, this is the size that Ennis was. What grade are you in?
Second.
Okay. So you're capable of handling all sorts of things, right? She answered herself. You think I'm going to ask you something. But you watch Fat Albert? Okay. So you can go sit down now. I just want you to see the walk and how they, 8 years old he was. And I took him out. I had to do some Fat Albert shows. So I had about 8 scripts, and I was in California. So I drove to the studio, and I said, you want to go out to the studio where we make the Fat Albert show? And he said, yeah. So we got in the car, and we drive. This is my son. I've lived with this dude for 8 years. So we go all the way back, and we go into this little cubby hole, and there are engineers, the engineers there, and a couple people who've done the script and the writers. And I go through a door into the sound room. There's a big glass so you can look right in, and I get behind the mic, and I look through and I see all these people, and my son is there, and he's just standing there, you know, and they say, okay, Bill, let's go to script page, so forth and so on. And I start to do the voices, you know, and I finish all the scripts, and I come out, and my son runs and he hugs me. He says, Dad, you're Fat Albert. See, I mean, I've been around the house for all this time, didn't get anything until he found out that his father was doing the voice of Fat Albert. Oh, he was proud of me then. He just walk around telling any kid, you know, this is my father. He can do the voice of Fat Albert. Then he started charging kids.
I remember when our son was young, and my wife and he were out, and they were talking about the future and such, and my son said, gee, I would like to do what my father does. And then I was there, I came up, and then he turned around and he said, Dad, what do you do? And it's a problem now. How do you relate to the family, because now they know exactly what you do, or at least a number of things that they do. How do they relate now that they know you are the celebrity that you are, the recognition all over the world? How do they deal with that and handle that?
I don't know. I really don't know, because our home life is something that Camille and I take very, very seriously, trying to give the children a formal education. We give them an environment. We give them a fine school. But we also stay on top of their problems. We stay on top of the great things that they do. So what we keep is really a family. The children see their mother not only looking after things and home, but she works on her degree also. Now, she graduated 2 years ago, getting her master's. She's now working on her doctoral thesis. She has her office. The children can see tons of books. They come into my office. They see papers all over the place, things written, do not touch this, very important. Some pieces of paper have been there for years. They're just unfinished sketches or skits. So the children see two parents who know that it's important to read what others have said. It's important to listen to. They sit around the table with us and they listen to us discuss just about everything on the face of this earth. And they also realize that their father studied to get into this business, that nothing was really handed to a person who was just wandering down the street, unskilled, untooled, not caring, uneducated. So we remain, I think, examples. None of us drink. Camille does not drink, nor do I. We don't do any illegal drugs at all. We don't believe in it. A couple of our children have tried alcohol. One has tried, two of them have tried pot, and we very seriously went to them and told them not to do it again, period. For no reason except we just don't think that the children need to alter their personality by taking in alcohol or smoke or coke or anything like that. That they are free when they are old enough and they want to leave the home. But our house is, as I said when I had to change my son's priorities, I've asked you to do things. You haven't done them when I asked you to. I told you to do something. You didn't do it when I told you. So now it is the law. This is the law. And when you break it, punishment comes. I don't mean taking away little toys. Punishment is on the way.
How would you like living in this kind of a house?
Oh, I already do.
Okay. Okay, very similar?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you like it, therefore?
Yeah, it's, you feel safe because your friends don't influence you, you know. You have a mind of your own. You can do what you want.
But you know what's expected of you, too.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think you'd like to live in the Cosby household?
No, well, he's my brother, so we can. It's a lot the same, but
Yeah.
but our parents are. They don't come right out and say. It's just that you want to make them happy, so you don't do what they don't want you to do. That's what it is. I think that's about the same.
So when Bill Cosby says things like right now or other times, you believe it, I guess.
Oh yeah, I believe it a lot. Our family has never had any trouble like that, but I've seen families that have, and it's hard for parents. Now that I've grown up and I've seen all their ways of getting us to do things, I think that's probably the way I'll be when I have kids.
Do you think it's a good idea for someone like Bill Cosby to talk about this to other people? Do you think that helps other people?
I think because he's influential to other people, and they've seen that he has what he wants, and at least that's the impression everybody gets.
Does this put a great burden on you, though? Oh, gee whiz, I have to be a spokesman for everything, and people look at me. I can't be more private about what I think, and I'm in a glass case.
No. It's a pain in the neck, though, to be counted all the time. Because the phone doth ring. and it is someone you don't know who is saying, I'd like to use some of your time to say or do something. Getting back to the parent-child situation, the only way I can really make the point better is that a parent-child situation is one that I don't think anybody's really happy. If everything is just wonderful, if the children are all doing everything just great, I don't think the parent still breathes yet. You don't breathe as a parent until, I guess, your children are, or you're dead. That's about it. That's about the only way I can see that you can say, well, I feel good. Even if they graduate from college and go on to other things. I listen to my mother. My mother's in her 70s, and this woman still puts money into the bank, in her bank book, for me, in case I start to lose it. Now, I mean, that's really something. And she can't have any more than $25,000 in the darn thing. But she's got money prepared for the day when I start to slip in show business, you know, in case to have something to fall back on.
We're going to come back and talk about one other part of show business, and that is doing some commercials and what it's like, and how do you audition, how do you do them, and why do you do them. We'll be right back with Bill Cosby. The topic is creativity with Bill Cosby. And I'm going to define, well, I'm not really going to define creativity, but I looked it up because I didn't want to be complete idiot on this thing, but I found that creativity is pretty much just the act of making something out of maybe nothing, but just the making, you know, making something happen. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
It isn't good, though, eh?
Oh, no, I think that's fine. I don't know that you want to stop there. I also think that it's not only making something, but being able to see connections between things. I think if we talk about somebody who is a genius, maybe if we took Einstein or somebody, I think you would find that he had a very creative mind because he was able to take things that everybody saw and still make some kind of generative jump to something else or to find the interrelations of things. I think that's creative.
Bill, this is Brian Strom, who's the resident playwright of the Rainbow Company, as well as one of the artistic directors. And do you deal with creativity in an obvious way, or do you just let definitions sort of emerge naturally?
Well, when we're working in production, I don't think we ever define creativity, but I think that we encourage everyone to think creatively. Most of the exercises that we begin with the acting classes or with the technical things we work on, start from making creative decisions, you know, allowing people to find their own direction into a problem. We'll pose an acting problem, for example, or a situational problem. One of the ones that our managing director, Jody Johnston, likes to use a lot is you get home from school and the door is locked, find a new way to get into the house. Okay, so apart from finding the key under the mat or something like that, people have brought home their pet elephant and blown open the door. Often you find people shrinking themselves down and climbing into the keyhole. And all those, I think, are examples of creative thinking. And you know, the strange thing, of course, is that most children think creatively anyway. Right. And if you give them the opportunity, they'll continue to think creatively. And as actors, that's real exciting, because that's what we want them to be doing on stage too, is to be able to think creatively and to come up with new ideas. So most of our directing and most of our work, I think, with the Rainbow Company Ensemble is directed towards creative decision making.
And unfortunately, a lot of adults stop thinking creatively, or at least but let's put this to a test. Now, how many of you have seen any of the Bill Cosby commercials? What one?
The Jell-O, that's the one that really stands out to me. All his Jell-O commercials with the
Why?
pudding and
Why?
Because
Could you tell us who you are, please?
my name's Tara Turner.
Hi.
Hi. And because you know how he's always trying to steal the pudding in the kids, and they just stand out, and it's like they're just naturally doing it. It's not like they're standing there and they're telling the kids to do this and do that. It's like they just react off of him.
Do you like that commercial too? Why?
Well, I think it's funny how all the little kids giggle over what he does and everything, and it's really a funny commercial, and it's interesting to watch what reaction they have towards him and everything.
And you like it?
Yeah.
Why?
It's funny, and then it's funny, and it's interesting, and at the same time it's persuading you to eat the Jell-O, but it's not like how they have the other commercials, like buy this or that because this or that's the best.
You just see the kids enjoying themselves, I think.
Do you enjoy that commercial?
Yeah.
Why?
I think because it's interesting to see how the little kids kind of look up to him, and how they giggle and all this different kind of stuff over some Jell-O pudding, and it's weird how he can make something like that interesting. Just a bowl of Jell-O pudding. That's all it is, but when you look at him doing it, it makes it interesting.
Okay, comments then, Bill, about the why they react the way they do. Now, go back, the creative process of how that whole thing came about.
Well, first of all, in a theologian sense, men do not, or human beings do not create. What we do is take what is here and we work with it.
Therefore, we co-create?
Therefore, we neo-create.
Neat.
Children, I don't want to see those children until we are ready to shoot the commercial. I don't want them to become familiar with me. I want to remain that image on the screen, that person they've never seen before. So they are rehearsed. The director puts them in the chair that she or he wants them in, and a guy comes and sits, and he is a very stiff, very sort of, well, just stiff Bill Cosby. And these kids rehearse that with this stiff. On purpose, obviously. So that now they're ready to shoot. You must remember the parents have not fed these children. So these kids will eat anything. They will eat beets at this hour. So when I come in, Bill Cosby, we shake the hands, and everything is up. Then we get ready to go, and the puddings come down, and it's party time. So all I have to do is say my lines, and the kids say that, and we have a great time, you see. The people at General Foods are very, very smart people because they don't mess with it. When you get to advertising, and commercials, then you will realize why I say there is no creativity. There's only pain in the neck people who've been paid X number of dollars and they must stand and try and pick. Now, children are creative, usually because they're either in a jam and they have to get out of it. They're very good at wiggling out of things, to make up things, to come from, well, I don't know, is a great creative line that comes from children. Well, why did, I don't know. That's about as creative as they're going to get. But if you set them in a situation where they're comfortable. I remember in acting, the first acting class I had with Frank Silvera. And Frank Silvera said, I want you to walk into the room and sit down. I want you to be the King of England. And I walked in the way I thought a king should and would walk in. I guess the image that I got was from all of the books I had read. And I sat down and I was very stiff, and then Frank ran a film of the king walking around and sitting down. It was just the opposite of what I thought. But Frank said, now if you'll notice the people around the king, they're the people who are walking as though they were king, you see. So this thinking that you cause is an excellent, excellent way to get them to turn, to twist, to bend, to come up with. And it is not unlike a thing that most of these children don't like, mathematics. You see, mathematics, oddly enough, most teachers feed it to you in a way that you just get numbers. But mathematics is really and truly philosophy. You start with 0, and then you have numbers. Well, you want to know how many. What's good math? A gang. A gang of them came at me. But how many? I don't know, it was too many. Well, I only saw 3. Oh, you see. But one ran away. You see, we get into philosophy. So you should never really treat mathematics as though it was some monster, as much as the same way you move into a corner, so you have to figure how to get out of it without stepping in your own paint.
You are going to be, your name, would you stand up? Your name?
Zoe Karatzi-Ferris.
And you're going to be auditioning for a commercial.
No, I already did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
What was it like? What?
You just went into a room and there were a few cameras and a television screen, and they just had you say a few words, and that was just it.
Did you have braces then?
No, I was 8 years old, around 7 or 8.
Anyone else audition for a commercial? So, got any pointers for them if they ever went in for a commercial?
Well, it would be nice if you liked the product. The other thing is that you really have to be up. They want you up. They also have a thing for looks. The quote-unquote prettier you are, better looking you are, or whatever they feel is American. So that excludes blacks and Asians and people who look Italian unless they're doing something Italian. And by the time you break down all of this ridiculous picking, you come and really find out that if you're blonde or you have red hair, and another one they like is if you have freckles and bangs and blonde hair and red hair. they will absolutely fall down over you. But brown-haired Caucasians, unless you're really striking, if you're dark, you may have a lot of trouble. In going for these things, if the part is, let's say, from age 3, from 3 to like 9, if you wear the little, you know, the pigtails things, whatever, it becomes, you know, it's look like this. And speak to everybody, that's nice. Boys come in looking like clean boys, you see. Give them some bangs, a little part down the middle, you'll be fine. But look at other commercials and take note when you see them and see what the kids look like. You'd be surprised. They almost all look the same, except Mikey. And once in a while you run into a commercial that's really, really great. But not many, not many.
Are there children's commercials or commercials geared to your age that you really don't like? Or, why? And what? Without telling us what the product is necessarily, just describe what you don't like about a particular commercial.
They don't really explain a lot of nice things, or they're not really like nice or anything. They're just like they just go on a lot of times. And
the thing that I didn't care for when I was a kid was that I felt cheated on the size of things. Now, I'm talking about, this is before you could see the thing on TV, but they found a way to cheat the size. For instance, they'll show these cars on TV going around the track and they look like they're doing about 400 miles an hour. And then when you see them, the cars are about like this, and then you'll see another thing where a guy jumps on the bike. And these kids look like they're having a fun time. And then you look at the bike and it's like this, and you have to really do it yourself, and the jump wasn't really that wonderful. You know, and it really isn't. So by the time they load up with music and take the size of the lens and put it on the car so that it looks like it's going a long, great distance. Now, I don't know, maybe girls have a better time and are not lied to as much. Like these dolls, you can comb the hair and put the dresses on them, and I don't know, you know, my daughters don't, the doll doesn't live that long. It doesn't live long enough for, you know, for the hair to fall out or to see what's going to happen. But I think that the stuff that they want, and they certainly want it when they see it on TV, when you pick it up, it isn't the size that you think it's going to be. It doesn't go as far as you thought it would, and it just isn't as much fun.
Have you ever been so offended by a particular product or way of doing it that you would just refuse to do the commercial?
Yeah. High C was like that. I mean, they just, to me, it just tasted terrible. And the people kept saying how expensive it was, and I said, well, you know, sugar costs an awful lot, and I think this stuff is too sweet. So I fired them.
You're one of the most successful players in commercials around now, aren't you?
I think I have hit commercials every time. I do Texas Instruments, Coca-Cola, of course Jell-O pudding, and we just signed a new 3-year contract to do it. And the reason is because I really want the commercial. What I want is I want the commercial to be interrupted by a program. And I know that in 30 seconds, people don't realize it, that 30 seconds of good feeling coming to a person is far more valuable than 48 minutes of some TV show that's meandering around, wrecking cars, smacking mother in the face, you know, chasing a crook up the hillside, or telling someone that you're going to have his child. So I recognized that a long, long time ago. These light beer commercials, for instance, they are so much fun. I don't drink beer, but I just love it when those commercials come on because they are so funny. And I enjoy that, and I appreciate them. I don't even drink light beer. I buy it, I put it in my house, and I say thank you for the moments. I say thank you for the moments that, you know, I've been watching whatever, because as we all know, there are some horrible, boring commercials that come on.
Well, sadly, we have to say thank you for being with us. This hour has gone pretty fast. And thank you, Bill Cosby. Thank you.